This is part 2 of a 2-part podcast.
Hey, this is T. Blankenship. Are you a fan of pie? Where there's pie at Permies.com. This pie grants the user secret access. You also get free things like videos of Wheaton Labs, the ability to add 2 thumbs up to posts, and more. To get pie, go to Permies.com/pie to get the inside scoop of what pie can do for you. Again, that is Permies.com/pie.
Okay,
That's an interesting question here.
So it says, I got to make my whole window way bigger.
It'd be a bad idea to burn green wood in a rocket stove, even though it hits 800 degrees Celsius. And I think what we were talking about is you're going to have to get that wood up from its temperature and burn and evaporate, boil out all that water before you get any BTUs off that wood. So yeah, you probably can burn it, but you're not getting anything like what you would get off of it if you were willing to let it sit on your mass and dry.
Andres, can you put that back up on the screen so I can see it again? So first of all, it's like there's this phrase rocket stove, and so I need to add some clarity here, and the reason is that if we say rocket stove, a lot of people lose their fucking shit because they think it's a camp stove that you're running inside of your living room, and everybody in the house is going to die from carbon monoxide or some kind of smoke inhalation or whatever.
Okay.
And so the thing is that vocabulary makes all the difference. So no, I understand. Please put the other question back up. I get that once I start bitching and whining about it, but I feel like it's good that you said it because, a lot of people, they say these exact words, rocket stove. And it's like, it's a reminder to me that I got to make it clear to everybody. Let's use the word rocket mass heater now to talk about what we're talking about. But of course, today's thing is really about wood stoves. And so whether it's a rocket mass heater or a wood stove. So it's a bad idea to burn green wood in a rocket mass heater, even though it hits 800 Celsius. Forgive me for being such an American. Is 800 Celsius like 1800 Fahrenheit? I'm not sure. I'm just guessing. Something around there. So it's like, it ain't gonna hit a high enough temperature if you've got wet wood in there. If you've got green or wet wood, it ain't gonna get to the temperatures that you're looking for. So when we run a rocket mass heater, we want the temperature to be pushing 2,000 degrees. And so, 1,600 to 1,900. So yeah, we want to do better than 1472 Fahrenheit. We want it to be very, very hot because we want to burn all the creosote and smoke, and they don't start burning until 1300. And so your 1472 is just barely hot enough to start burning the creosote and smoke. And so, yeah, I would say that I would be very concerned that if you've got green or wet wood. In fact, this year we're burning cardboard, and I think Stephen came in a couple of months ago and he said, "Hey, what the hell are you burning? There's smoke outside." And because usually when you're burning rocket mass heater, there's no smoke. So I had to go outside and look, and it's like, there is smoke. That is disgusting. Well, it was this weird cardboard. It looked like a waxed cardboard, which waxed cardboard does really great. I mean, the wax is flammable, the cardboard is flammable, everything is flammable. But it did look a little different, and I've never seen a cardboard like this, and I don't know where it came from, but it was in our pile of cardboard, and we chucked it in. But the cardboard was boiling. And it's like, what is going on there? That is some weird stuff. So we don't burn that anymore. I don't know what that was, but that was causing smoke, which we find very offensive here. We're like, no, it's got to be a clean burn.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a great question. I would say it is a bad idea to burn green wood in anything. Don't burn green wood in a rocket mass heater. Don't burn green wood in. Now, I'll go a step further and say, I think that if you're going to do it, it's going to be probably safer in a rocket mass heater than in a conventional wood stove, just because in a conventional wood stove, you're burning it in a metal box that throws the heat off immediately. And so it's already difficult to get to a high enough temperature to burn the smoke in creosote. But in a rocket mass heater, you're burning it in an insulated box.
Mm-hmm.
And so the temperature it'll hit a much higher temperature easier. And so it's more likely to, even though it's burning cooler, it's more likely to get to a high enough temperature to burn the smoke in creosote than if you're in a conventional wood stove. But I would say never burn green wood. I mean, what we're talking about today is how do you heat your home in a desperate situation when all you have is green or wet wood? And it's like, and our recipe is, rather than trying to burn it directly, is like, okay, try to dry it quickly. And so step one is to make it way smaller. And of course, everybody's going to be like, that's a pain in the ass. Yes, it is a pain in the ass. And so, but it's only better up. And it's going to involve something with your green or wet wood. All right. Let's talk about having a conventional wood stove, and you're going to be trying to dry your wood. And so we've talked about make it much, much smaller. Also, stand it on end instead of laying it on its side. These are two things that will really, really help. You're going to have a lot of wood storage, because the more wood storage you have indoors, the better. And then you can have some stuff where it's like, now with a conventional wood stove, if you have an enormous amount of wood storage inside, like, I don't know, I have a hard time imagining somebody trying to store more than a face cord, but it's kind of like a conventional wood stove. You're going to have to burn a lot of wood to warm up the space compared to a rocket mass heater, and that's an enormous amount of wood. But still, have a system. The stuff that's going to be dry. I think another good thing to do is to get a moisture meter. Get used to measuring it. I mean, I'm kind of used to like picking up a stick and saying, hey, wait a minute. I think this stick is a little too heavy. Now, granted, if it's dry but has a lot of good BTU energy in there, it's going to feel a little heavier than something that's punky, or because sometimes you have wood that's kind of rotten but dry.
Yeah, and that could take forever. It's like a big sponge.
Feel that crazy heft. And that's going to be, I think that this wood it feels like it's probably wet on the inside. In which case, if you hold a stick and you're thinking it feels like it's going to be wet on the inside, might be a good idea to cut it up into much smaller pieces and get that and put it back into the drying cycle. But, all right, suppose you bring this enormous amount of wood inside, have a system of your wood that's ready to be burned and the wood that's going to need some more time to dry. And if you're trying to heat your home with a conventional wood stove, I don't know, you might need to have enough storage indoors for a full cord of wood to dry.
That'd be nice.
I mean, and I think you want to stack it kind of close to your wood stove. Now there's other techniques on how to heat your home with less wood with a conventional wood stove. And I think, we talked about stuff on top of your wood stove, and I would have to say that if you were to put angle iron on the sides, on the edges of the top of the wood stove, and then you were to put more angle iron on top of that going the other way, you could start stacking up a bunch of rocks. Or here, yeah, you could set up a flat stone on your wood stove.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did I write this? I might have. You could set up a flat stone on your wood stove and then put some firewood on that. I'm going to say I hereby retract those words. If I said that, I wish to withdraw those words.
The thing about the stone is it will get so hot, right? Yeah. Like you can lay in lovely stone like you've got in that picture, like beautiful marble or other granite or any kind of great like countertop kind of stone, and lay that up against your wood stove, and that's really nice to add mass, but it does get really, really hot, and you can burn yourself, or you could probably get your wood to start to smoke.
So, I want to make it clear, I wish to say do not put any wood above your wood stove.
Yeah, it's just too dangerous.
B, I would never, on the top of the wood stove, I would advise to not put anything on top of the wood stove that's in contact with the stove. And I think, and let me get it. So, all right, the thing I'm shooting for here is if you were to put angle iron on the edges of your wood stove, and then more angle iron going the other way on top of that, and then rocks on that. Go ahead and stack those rocks up 18 inches tall, and it'll be even better if you were to cob all those rocks together, or just have one giant rock that's way too heavy to move around. Then that's going to absorb heat and give it off through the night. And that's going to be such a life. It's going to that alone won't cut your wood use in half, but it will cut it probably 30%. And then there's other places where we can store rocks, but this is where I was going, is if you've got a cord of firewood inside your home, and it's like at least 18 inches away from the wood stove, preferably more like 2 feet away or even farther, it'll act as a mass. It'll absorb heat when the fire is burning and hold it for a long time, maybe hours, maybe even through the night. So it serves a double function. Not only is it drying, but it's also absorbing heat and buffering your heat, which is, going to be a big help. Of course, you take that exact same spot and put rocks. So like, for example, in this picture that we're looking at right now, you can see that there's all these bricks behind the wood stove. They are absorbing the heat and holding it. So they're protecting the wall from getting too much heat and simultaneously absorbing the heat. All of that wood that's on the ground around it, I don't think I would ever want to put firewood that close.
Yeah, I think that looks a little unsafe in this picture.
That would make me way too nervous. Yeah.
But I think it's important when you look at your wood stove to really see how it's intended to be used. These surfaces, like the top surface, is intended to release heat. You don't want to insulate that, right? Like you've got your angle iron or whatever, you're allowing that top surface to express the heat into the room or onto the stone. But if you were to put a piece of stone on that or cover that, it's going to be bad for the stove, right? You don't want that metal to get super hot. The sides, there's a plaque on the back of the stove that says how close you can have things. And you don't want to have rock or anything closer than that because it actually can cause the stove's metal to degrade. You can't get it that hot. So allow the heat to leave the stove and then start to suck it up. And you'll get plenty if you put your rocks around there.
So this is where we're kind of talking about, like, do you have a cast iron stove? And I'm sure everybody who's watching this right now has heard this phrase, a cast iron stove, a cast iron wood stove. And it's like, why do you care if it's cast iron instead of steel? And it's for this exact reason.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you get a fire going really, really, really hot, and I'm sure everybody who's got any experience using a conventional wood stove, it starts to glow.
Well, that's too hot. That's too hot for your stove.
It is.
Yeah.
That's true. However, I think everybody who's ever heated with a wood stove has observed this. Oops. So the thing is that if you've got something on the top, touching the top, now that part that's starting to glow, the hottest point in the whole stove, and it can't throw off the heat, I suppose it could melt. But I'm actually not as worried about that as I am worried that if it is a steel stove instead of a cast iron stove, then the steel will spall at 1600 degrees.
Yeah.
Iron and steel tend to melt around 2600, 2800. I mean, it'll get soft before that, like forging hot before that, where and if you've got something heavy on the top, it could reshape the top of your stove when it gets soft enough. But let's set that aside for a moment. Let's focus for a moment. If it's steel at 1600 degrees, steel will begin to spall, and that's where it kind of gets to be flaky and lightweight, and it's gonna flake off. And basically make a hole in the top of your stove, thus making it so you can't use your stove anymore. So I think that, it's important that if you're going to put anything on your stove, like some people will put a kettle or a pot or something, and it's like, that system works great, provided that you have the human discipline to make sure that as long as that's there, it's got water in it.
Yeah.
But if you don't have water in it, you've got the same problem again, where it could overheat and melt or spall or whatever. And it's like, but it works fine as long as you remember to keep water in it. And now I want to put out the thing where it's like, okay, is there anybody who's run wood heat before and put a kettle or a pot on top of it and it accidentally went dry? And it's like, okay, if it's happened even once, I want you to embrace you do not have enough discipline to do this trick. So it's like, don't put anything on top of the stove, because, you were tested and you failed. So admit that to yourself and embrace it, and don't put anything on there, whether it has liquid in it or not. Just don't. Now, the thing we described was the rock would end up being like a couple of inches above the top of the stove. So there'd be a lot of air still moving in there. It wouldn't insulate. The air would be moving through there, but the radiant heat and the convective heat coming off the top of the stove would hit those rocks and heat those rocks up substantially, and then reduce your fuel needs. And then at the same time, if you had a whole bunch of other rock inside of your house around your wood stove, and now that rock can be like 8 inches away from your wood stove. It can be much closer than any wood. Then that rock is going to also help to hold heat in the house. And it's going to make it so that your overall wood needs are reduced. So instead of burning through 6 cords of dry wood to heat your home through the winter, you might be able to knock that down to 3 cords.
Maybe.
So if you've knocked it down that much, maybe the amount of wood you need inside where it's in the process of drying is only half a cord instead of a full cord.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go. There's my long-winded way of trying to say, please don't be careful about what you put on top of a wood stove.
Yeah. Well, and a wood stove, actually, you can get a thermometer for it that will tell you how hot it is. And then you can have another thermometer on your stovepipe that tells you how hot it is, because those metals are not intended to get red hot or anything like it. And every time you do heat them too much, they degrade. You know, whether they're getting to the point of spalling or just getting to the point that they warp a little bit and the seals aren't as good. And it ages that stove and that operation. So if you have a good thermometer, you know, you might have to run the thing wide open for more hours to keep yourself warm, but you're not damaging your equipment. And I think that that's really important.
Hi, this is Mark. There are a lot of reasons to get angry these days, but I prefer to focus on the positive things that we each can do to make this world a better place. The book Building a Better World in Your Backyard, Instead of Being Angry at Bad Guys, is a great resource for just that. Instead of throwing my arms up in frustration at governments or big corporations, there's a list of ideas that we each can tackle to affect change. Information about this book and other resources can be found at permies.com.
Another trick.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if you're off grid, I'm not sure how good of an idea this is, but if you're on the grid, wherever you've got your wood stored, you could direct a fan at it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like for example, when you're going to dry your laundry outdoors, drying your laundry out in the sun, you know, the sun does some, but really it's the wind that does 90% of it. And so, it's a good thing to, consider that. And so if it's going to be drying indoors, go ahead and, put a fan on it. Maybe you could put a couple fans around, stuff like that. Get that air moving through there. It'll really dry it out well, especially if the room's gotten to be a little bit warm. What'll happen is that when a room is heated with wood, a lot of people in fact have trouble with wood heat because the interior of their home becomes too dry, and they're doing all kinds of things with their skin and stuff because it's so dry in their home. But that'll help to dry out the wood. So it's like, yeah, a little bit of air movement. A fan would be terrific. All right. Flat stone, create a lot of really good firewood racks. In fact, as much as I like the crate idea, and you can stack those crates and stuff, and they work with, air circulating through the crates and things like that, and that's all really terrific. Just having some good old-fashioned wood racks inside your home, whether they are just temporary for the winter or they're permanent or whatever, but to be able to store a lot of wood inside your home where it's warm will make a big difference.
Yeah.
And it's like, because that way, if you encounter some wood, that would be great heat. If it were dry, now you got a place to put it. Whereas if you don't have a place to put it, you're like, oh, I'll just have to leave it here and I'll come back in a few weeks maybe or something. And it's like, just having the wood racks is going to be a giant leap towards getting all of this to work out. So, I know that in this thread that we have, somebody had a really good suggestion, and I wish I knew what it was, but I can't find it. All right. The thing is that's all my advice for heating with green wood. You gotta dry it first. You gotta. And it's like if you try to burn the green wood, it just ends poorly in a buffet of ways. And so really you've got to find a way to dry it first. And it's going to be more work because you're going to basically make it really, really small in order to be able to dry it quickly. And for the for this size of stuff, if you're starting out with green or wet or both, I would say once you get it down to this size, it can be burned in about 2 weeks if it's someplace that's relatively warm in your home. So especially if you stand it on end. So it's like, and then if you want it to be ready faster, you would cut it into smaller pieces and still stand it on end. And it'll get there for you. And then with the fans or giving it a ride in the oven, you can get it ready in a couple of hours. And so, and then it'll be dry enough that it'll burn. So, but yeah, this feels nice and light. I can tell it's dry because of how light it is, how light it feels. But then again, I don't know, I'm used to that. But we also have like 3 different moisture meters around. So that way people that are new to heating with wood can test it out. And so some of the wood that was out there, I was trying to explain to somebody like, this wood isn't dry. And they're like, yes, it is. It's ready to go. And so we got one of the moisture meters and it said that it was like 60% water. And it's like, yeah, see, that's way too dry. You kind of need it to be under 15 in order to burn it.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, oh, and then plus you just feel it. Just feel how heavy it is. All right. So I think that's my list. Samantha, you got anything else to add to this?
No, I think you got it. You did great. I think getting the stuff small makes a big difference, allowing that moisture to leave the wood, and just be okay with having wood as part of your decoration around your house for winter.
And what a lovely decoration.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Stick it in every little corner and you'll be fine.
Oh, here's one. So how thick should a brick mass be? 12 inches thick? Or is that 2 inches? I'm having a hard time understanding what's being said in the rest. But, okay, if we're talking about a brick mass like behind that wood stove, I think that the average thickness of a brick is, I believe it's 3.5 inches thick. And I would think that just one layer of brick should be, sufficient. I would have an inch of space between the brick and the wall behind it. But that would act as a great heat shield as well as a mass. Now, of course, the thicker it is, the more mass you have. But also, if you've got a brick that's like next to the stove and another brick behind that, the brick behind it isn't going to get very warm unless if you have cob connecting them, then conductive heat will carry the heat to the back brick. But otherwise, that back brick isn't going to be getting very warm ever. So I think that if you're going to do something thicker than one brick, you're going to want to have something that will adhere the bricks together and be a conductive material to conduct the heat through. But that's also great too for, overall, because the other thing is like if you have 20 rocks that are like, let's say 5 pounds each, they're going to hold a certain amount of heat and release it fairly quickly. But if you could take those same 20 rocks and cob them all together, it's like you have a giant 100-pound rock now, and that'll hold heat longer. And so then, it's more likely to carry heat through the night, which I think, one of the beautiful things about a rocket mass heater is that, we burn the fire in the morning, and then at night, it's still very warm, and in the following morning, it's still quite warm in the house. Yeah. And so, whereas with a lot of conventional wood stoves, and you don't have a lot of mass around it, it's like, the fire goes out and it starts cooling off in the house really fast. I remember so Samantha, you were here, I don't know, it was over a year ago, I think, and made that video, Day in the Life of a Rocket Mass Heater. Was that a year ago?
Yeah, that was over Christmas. So yeah.
And so, and we posted that, and I feel like, what a great video kind of showing things off. And I remember I deleted a comment. It was so snotty, saying something really mean about, like, that's just not possible, and I think what they meant to say is like, I'm a dumb fuck and I only burn with my conventional wood stove, and once the fire goes out, it starts getting cold. So therefore you can't have heat when I can't have heat. and it's like, because I think that the key is that, once you get the mass all heated up, and you measured the mass, it was like 110 or something.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it keeps gently throwing off heat for days after that. And so then it doesn't keep the space as warm, but it adds heat. And then that's another thing to talk about with rocket mass heaters is some people have experimented with having no radiator. And that's very challenging and definitely not for newbies. But the space will actually get warmer. Like 3 hours later, the whole space will become unbearably warm. So we had this problem where we had a rocket mass heater in the red cabin that didn't have a radiator. And then people would run a fire for hours to try to get that space warmed up. And then finally it's warm enough and they'd go to bed. And then 2 hours later, they're awake because it's 100 degrees in the cabin now. And then they would go to open a window to cool it off so they can sleep. And in the morning, they're freezing their nubs off because somebody left the damn window open. And it's like, so yeah, I really think that the radiator is an important component of a rocket mass heater to throw off short-term heat, and then the mass holds the long-term heat. And then, yeah, there's recipes for like what's better. And too many people, I think, start to say like, oh, I want more heat to go into the mass. And it's like, be careful what you wish for. You might get it and then you won't like it. But I think when you did your test, you corked the fire and then the temperature in the room went up like 3 or 4 more degrees before it started to go down. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we didn't get it over what was comfortable, but I think, we're going around in a tank top, which is pretty nice when it's 13 degrees outside.
Yeah. I think if I remember right from the video, like you stopped with the fire when it hit 73 or something. And then like, I don't know, 6 hours later, the fire had been out for hours and it was 78. I don't know. I can't remember for sure. Something like that. But the mass keeps throwing off heat, and then of course it's going to be an asymptotic scale with a half-life. And so, but, basically the next morning, 24 hours later, it was 10 degrees outside. And, I think it was like 69 inside or something like that. It was still quite comfortable.
It was really nice. It's so wild when you have that big of a degree change from inside to outside. Because it doesn't seem like the mass is doing anything. It's just sitting there and you can touch it and it's warm. But then you go outside and you realize how cold it is. And this is just a regular house. I mean, it's not like a house with cob walls or, some super insulated structure. It's just a regular, it's a nice house, but it's not like you had to do anything special. This is just a recommended
super insulation. No super this, no super that. We don't even have an enclosed front porch, which I think would help a lot.
You're just going straight in with just a storm door, and that's pretty impressive, I think. So
we do have, most of our windows now have like a double, blind kind of thing, the accordion blind. Which
how is that working?
I think it's doing a good job of, keeping the cold on the glass at the glass. And so it's helping. So we pull all the blinds at night and open them up in the morning.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I think it helps. I think it makes a difference. But all right.
I get a lot of drafts through my windows. I mean, I cover them, but there's still, you can, it's almost like there's a wind when you put your hand between the fabric and the glass.
Yeah. So, we have a window quilt on one window. Maybe in a few years, all the windows will have window quilts.
Mm-hmm.
They're fun to make. But okay. All right. Heating your home when you're desperate with green or wet wood. I think we covered it. We threw in a couple of more suggestions. But I think for the most part, the key component is it's like find ways to dry the wood really fast. It will be extra work, which is annoying. And I kind of feel like we're exercising these techniques right now, just because we're trying to do this whole other experiment of can we heat our home all winter? And it was based on, hearing about a guy years ago that heated his home all winter with nothing but junk mail, rocket mass heater.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, we don't get junk mail like people used to get junk mail, but we do get cardboard. And so, it's like, all right. And then there's other papery waste things. And then, all right. So this is garbage. Oh, wait. Oh, how large of a space are you here at my house? So our 600 square foot house gets too hot with a wood stove. And it's like, so I would have to, a 600 square foot house. I'm thinking like, okay, Allerton Abbey is 400 square feet. So it's 1.5 Allerton Abbeys. This home is, I think 1350, I think. And I know it's bigger than 1300 and smaller than 1400. I know that for sure. So, but, I would say that, that's going to be a challenge with a 600 square foot house and a wood stove is that, you're going to heat things up really fast. And then the fire goes out. And that's the other thing too, is that, I don't think if you've got a full-sized wood stove and a tiny house, and you want to heat with just a hot fire because anything else is going to be smoky, then it's hard to do with a wood stove, whereas it's easy to do with a rocket mass heater. In fact, I'm going to say, so the red cabin, I'm going to guess that the red cabin on the inside is, I think it's less than 8 feet wide. And I'm thinking lengthwise it's 16 feet. So, now I'm going to go to the mighty Google and say 16 times 8 is 128. So I'm going to say the red cabin is about 120 square feet. I'm just going to guess on the inside. And it's got a rocket mass heater in there, with a cob hat. But, we've had several people go in there with this latest rocket mass heater with the cob hat and talk about how, it takes about 20 minutes to warm that space up to nice and comfortable. And then it remains comfortable through the night and into the morning. In the morning, they lost maybe 2 degrees. And so it's quite comfortable. So you just burn a very hot, fast fire. Whereas I think if you've got a 600 square foot space with a wood stove, your hot, fast fire could make it too hot, but you're filling the whole thing up in order to be able to do a hot, fast fire. And then, of course, how quickly does the space get to be too cold and you got to have another hot, fast fire? You would be tempted to keep a fire going so it doesn't get cold, but then that tends to be a very smoky, slow fire, which is not cool. So I would have to say, Space Girl, if that's your real name, I would have to say that I would want, if I'm stuck in the space that you're stuck in, I would want to try to work in some mass around the stove in order to be able to not deform the stove, while simultaneously warming up the mass so that I can have quick hot fires and not be tempted to do a slower burn. So I hope I answered the question. I answered how large a space, and then she talked about the 600 square feet. Okay. All right.
I have a 400 square foot cabin, and what I do is I just have a hot fire, but I have a smaller fire. So the pieces of wood are small. I don't fill the wood box, like if it's cold. But I also have cob walls, and I have a lot of stone. So like stone countertops and stone floor, and so that helps a lot. But I just burn it wide open, burn it hot, and then let it go out. And if I get uncomfortable, fire it up again.
Okay.
That's
so, Andreas, were there any other questions that we should take a look at? We good? All right. Yeah. I'm just gonna go. If you like this sort of thing, come on out to the forums at Permies.com, where we talk about heat, homesteading, and permaculture all the time.
All the time.
In a world on the brink of social collapse, one website stands above the rest to fight back the zombie horde of corporate trolls. Permies.com. Take back control of your destiny and protect your loved ones from the toxic git coming at you from all directions. Strap on your overalls and start building that bunker of abundance with the good vibes and friendly, helpful insight found at Permies.com.